do not really know what a mental illness is. It doesn't mean that it's only the person who carries baggage and they're walking on the street and they're putting on dirt in it. It doesn't mean that that is the only person who's suffering from a mental illness.
Even the Safi, we're talking about mental health. What is mental health or mental illness?
Yeah. So mental health is basically a state of well-being where an individual is able to realize their own abilities. They're able to cope with the daily life stresses and they're productive in the society. So when it comes to a point where an individual does not attain all those pre-states that I've mentioned, then they get into a mental illness. So mental illness is, there are different types of mental illnesses that maybe we'll go into that later, but generally mental health it's quite broad. It goes right from an individual being unable to cope with the daily life stresses and they're not able to contribute to their society.
Okay, so if anyone is not able to cope with daily life cause, that person has a mental illness.
Or might be getting a mild mental illness.
Okay, so what are the causes of these mental illnesses?
Mental illnesses are caused by various factors. The most common that we find out is genetics. So it's hereditary. So that's why when you'll go to the clinic, you'll be asked very simple questions. Your family. Is there anyone else who's been suffering from this, or is there someone who's had it before? And you know, because mental health is also quite broad, we try looking at the utero from when the baby was born.
Okay.
So if a mother, say for example, was using substance or alcohol during pregnancy, then this is a child that is put up to be vulnerable to getting some mental illnesses. Say for example, substance use disorders or alcohol use disorders. And maybe this child might have suffered initially fetal alcoholic syndrome, which is from the utero, like when they are still, you know, like
so it affects them when they're still in the womb.
Yes. Wow. So you see, it's quite broad. So it starts really from there, but you see, there are genetic factors that can come in. But other than that, we also have other factors, and that can be psychosocial stressors. And psychosocial stressors could be trauma. Maybe someone has been involved in a traumatic event. They have lost their jobs, they have lost their loved ones, they have maybe gone to war, mostly for the uniformed forces, and they suffer different things. So other than the psychosocial stressors, we also have other factors that might come in. And see, that's what I'm really telling you, that it's quite broad.
Yeah,
like,
I know it's broad, but tell us those at least 5 causes of mental illness. The ones that, you know, somebody who is not a psychologist can relate with.
Okay, so I have mentioned some of the factors. Those are biological
trauma,
factors.
Yeah, there's trauma. You've mentioned somebody getting them from birth.
When those are quite also biological.
So those are biological.
Yes. Then now we have the psychosocial stressors, which is now generally your association with people. You see also some for the peers and the teenagers. It starts with the school. Maybe their friends are not relating well. So relational factors, and then of course other factors. So you see that's on psychosocial stressors, and then now we have social factors. You cannot just relate with people, and you know you'll tell me, well, it's quite a normal thing. I mean, they're just people that I see and I do not like them. And am I having a mental illness? Well, there are things that you also look at. You have to look at the period of time and the very specific factors. You have to break it down. Then of course economic factors. Just recently in 2020, there was a report that came out on the state of mental health in Kenya. So this was quite, and it was quite interesting that when the Presidential Task Force on Mental Health in Kenya came out with a report on 7th of July, amongst the factors that they stated was the fact that people during election, people get stressed out.
Definitely.
And later on, we see so many cases of post-traumatic stress disorders. So you see, even economically, when the country is not stable, they tend to get into a state of not being mentally healthy. So you see, it's like a very broad factor.
It's a broad factor. Like right now, you know, when the president yesterday announced that we're going to have an indefinite lockdown, let me tell you, most people are stressed out. So could we say they're having a mental breakdown right now?
Of course, you see, I keep on repeating this, Belly, and it's because people do not really know what a mental illness is. It doesn't mean that it's only the person who carries baggage and they're walking on the streets and they're putting on dirt in it. It doesn't mean that that is the only person who's suffering from a mental illness. Even the very small stresses, like giving birth to a child.
Post-traumatic. Is it called?
Post-traumatic stress. There's postpartum depression and there's the post-traumatic psychosis. And so these are literally, you are giving birth and then something comes up. And others, as little as just being promoted. You know, there's positive stress and there's negative stress.
I didn't know that.
So
there's both positive and negative stress.
Now you know. Positive stress is called eustress. But the most common type of stress that we relate with is distress. And it's because it's negative stress. But anytime there's a promotion that someone has, you're going to a bigger office, you get worried, you're like, how am I going to do this? But you see, it's positive stress. Someone walking down the aisle, you see them crying, and you're wondering, okay, this is not right. Why are they crying? And it's a good thing, it's a beautiful thing. But they're just imagining, how's home going to be? I'm leaving them. And you see, at that moment, they're getting this bit of stress. But you see, every human being, that's why at the beginning I mentioned that you're unable to cope with it. So if someone is able to cope with the lockdown that the president said there's a lockdown, and they're able to cope with it, and they say, okay, after the lockdown, I'll come back home, I'll see you. My Easter plans have been, cancelled, and they have all these things.
But I can cope with it.
I can cope with it.
So those people are just okay.
Yeah, they're
the
okay.
people who cannot cope now with the lockdown and everything that is happening now,
and they're not productive.
They're not
to
productive.
their society.
There's also that bit of productivity.
Yes.
Wow, that's so amazing. I hope you guys are learning something from this topic. It's so interesting.